very good evening. You are watching Prime Time News live and direct from the Newsfirst studios here in Colombo. For the Newsfirst team, I am Rahna Farooq. Let's start off with a look at your headlines for tonight.
Finance Minister requests public to stop luxury spending. Sajit Fonseca distributes vehicles worth over 244 million rupees to departments under his ministry. Medical Council begins the registration of SITEM students. Liberia court orders arrest of more than 30 ex-central bank officials over missing cash.
Minister of Finance and Mass Media Mangala Samravira, speaking to students of Royal College Colombo, commented on the present state of affairs.
So putting money into the market is not the solution. We have to somehow try to save as much dollars as possible, not to spend on unnecessary things. I think all ministers, MPs, everyone must stop bringing these fancy imported cars. I'm not going to allow them to do so in the next year. And then also we may have to reduce your fancy imported goods for a while. That will help. If you can stop buying, I don't know, fancy bottles of wine or cheese or whatever you eat at home, and stick to the local products for a while. We can hold it down, but as I keep saying, it is not the end of the world. The economy is not going to crash. In a way, this is a good point for us to expedite our program to make Sri Lanka into an export-oriented economy, because the exporters are doing extremely well, because when the dollar goes, they are getting much more than before. Migrant workers are doing well, because whatever money they've been sending home is worth more. So there are sections who are benefiting, but the others will have to tighten their belts for a few months until the situation gets better. But I can't tell you when it will get better, because yesterday, for example, the fuel price went up to $81. And I saw in CNN saying they were predicting if the US-Iran situation gets worse, it could go up to $100. So we'll have to face that. We'll have to face that. And the fuel formula is coming on the 10th again. So prepare yourselves.
Although the Minister of Finance asked the general public to tighten their belts, isn't it the ministers themselves who should be doing so by setting an example? Today, Minister Sajit Fonseca distributed vehicles worth over 244 million rupees to departments under his ministry. Have the ministers who advise the public cut down on their own foreign travels, luxury vehicles and lavish vacations? The International Monetary Fund says the Central Bank of Sri Lanka's efforts should be supported by a strong 2019 budget, adding greater revenue mobilization can make space for critical spending needs, including broader coverage of vulnerable families under the social safety net based on well-defined section criteria. The IMF says the mission made significant progress towards reaching a staff-level agreement with the government on completing the 5th review of the EFF. Thus, it was suggested that tax policy should be applied in a more constructive manner. The mission commended the successful implementation of the fuel pricing reforms and encouraged the introduction of an automatic price mechanism for electricity.
If I had any recommendation to make to Sri Lanka on this score, I would go back to development banking. You see, this is one of the worst things that was ever done in Sri Lanka, the privatization of the NDB and the DFCC. All the successful countries I mentioned had one policy, and one policy only, that was the absolute bedrock of everything they did, and that was development banking, state development banking. The thing they feared was state development banking, because that is the core. That's the core. Once you get state development banks, then you're in a totally different ballgame. You see, remember when they came in after the assassination of President Premadasa, the first thing the IMF asked for was privatization of DFCC and NDB. DFCC and NDB were the two most efficient banks in Sri Lanka. Why did they want them privatized? And after they finished with the privatization, did they go after the Bank of Ceylon? No, they didn't. Did they go after any of the other banks? No, they didn't. They didn't go after the People's Bank. They were obvious candidates. Why did they go after DFC and NDB? I don't blame the foreigners. I don't blame the Western countries. This is an economic war. Who do I blame? I say our people. If you forgive me for saying that, I blame our people.
MP Udaya Gamanpilla today filed an appeal under the Right to Information Act to the Ministry of Finance, seeking information on the fuel price formula. At an event last evening, Minister of Finance Mangala Samaravira said fuel prices are expected to rise in the near future. As near as the 10th of October, we have a right to know as to why we pay such high prices for fuel. On behalf of the Finance Ministry, the Information Officer of the Ministry of National Policy says revelation of the fuel price formula will cause negative effects to the national economy and therefore cannot be revealed to the public. We made an appeal to the Director General of the Government's Monetary Policies Department today. While speaking to the Director General, it was envisaged that he too will decline our request. If he does decline our request, we will proceed to the Right to Information Commission. If they too reject it, we will seek assistance from the Supreme Court.
A number of changes that would affect the country's economy were made after the presentation of the budget proposals last year. Against such a backdrop, are the objectives of presenting a budget actually fulfilled?
Many policy decisions that were not included in the 2018 budget presented to Parliament on the 9th of November last year were added during the course of the past 10 months. 19 supplementary estimates were presented to Parliament to fund these additional programs during the past 10 months. Here are some of the decisions reached by the government that were not initially included in the budget proposal. Maximum retail price introduced for dal, dried fish and coconut. Maximum retail price introduced for nadu rice. Increasing the tax on imported potato from 1 rupee to 30 rupees. Enactment of the new Inland Revenue Act brought about many tax revisions. 15% tax imposed on gold imports. Price of a 12.5 kilogram domestic gas cylinder increased by 245 rupees. Price of a kilogram of milk powder increased by 50 rupees. Import tax of dal increased. Prices of petrol increased by 20 rupees. Diesel by 14 rupees and kerosene oil by 57 rupees. Bus fares increased by 12.5%. Price of kerosene oil reduced to 70 rupees. Rural Development Program Gamperaliya launched. Prices of petrol increased by 8 rupees, diesel by 9 rupees and super diesel by 10 rupees. Tariffs on vehicles with an engine capacity less than 1000 cc increased to 1.5 million rupees. Price of a litre of octane 95 petrol increased by 2 rupees. 1 litre of super diesel increased by 1 rupee. Price of 1 litre of petrol increased by 4 rupees. 1 litre of diesel increased by 5 rupees. Normal bus fares increased by 4%. Price of a domestic gas cylinder increased by 195 rupees. Prices of hopper, milk tea, rice were increased as of yesterday.
It is necessary that we maintain stability at least during that particular financial year, because then all the others can really do their own budgeting. For instance, if you are a household, that you have these expenses to incur, you're going to have these incomes, and that you might be able to manage your household income and expenditure accordingly. I think this applies equally to companies and other entities where they certainly have to think about how they are going to manage their budgets. And so I think it is important that we maintain stability during the financial year, so that it makes it easier for everybody to really function.
In January and August 2015, the government of Sri Lanka pledged over and over to put a complete stop to corruption and bringing transparency for all quarters. How far has this become a reality?
While allegations of corruption against the current government are not being addressed, no action has been taken on the accusation of corruption, murder and fraud against members of the former regime either. Some matters that are still being investigated are the assassination of senior journalist Lasantha Wickrematunge, the MIG deal allegedly involving former Defence Secretary Gotabaya Rajapaksa, assassination of Wasim Tajuddin, alleged unjust enrichment on part of former Minister Mahindananda Alutgamage, fraud, corruption and impropriety at Sri Lankan Airlines, Sri Lankan Catering and Mihin Lanka Private Limited. The list does not even begin to scratch the surface of allegations of corruption, fraud and murder. The present government also faces serious accusations which mainly include the central bank treasury bond scam, corruption surrounding the provision of tabs to students, corruption at Sri Lankan Airlines, the 99-year lease of the Hambantota port, construction of the Central Expressway, issues surrounding the world's emptiest airport, Mattala, the electricity scam, and many, many more. Given this backdrop, the government has recently called on the public to cut down on spending and entertainment. However, the public question as to why it is only they that have to tighten their belts.
ඉඳගන්න පුටුව ලක්ෂ 6ක් නම් කන බොන මේ වාහන කීයක්ද පාවිච්චි කරන්නේ. එතකොට මේ ඒ මිනිසුන් ඕටි බටා අරවා මේවා සේරම දෙන්න ගියාම මිලියන ගාණක් යනවා ඇති මේ දවසකට නැත්තම් මාසෙකට. ඉතින්
so when the pay comes to my hand, it is insufficient to pay my bills and day-to-day life. My living standard has been come down day by day. So I'm sacrificing a lot on my meals, even my wife sacrifice on this.
තරම අපි මේ විදියට අපේ පඩියට සාපේක්ෂව අපේ ජීවන තත්ත්වය හරවා ගත්තාට දේශපාලඥයෝ එහෙම කරන්නේ නැහැ. මොකද දේශපාලඥයන්ට ඇතිතරම් සල්ලි තියෙනවා.
Activists have called for immediate reform in the government and an immediate end to fraud and corruption.
The government is making a request to the people to tighten their belts and save and whatever to do to stop expenditure. Now this is a ridiculous exercise because the government, ministers, prime minister, all of them are spending the money of the people, the taxpayers' money, in a manner which we have not seen before. This government is wasting money on security, vehicles, foreign travel, first class travel, all that. Now, if the government wants the people to cut their living standards down, the government must show, the leaders must give an example, set an example, rule by example. We cannot see any of that happening. The expenditure is increasing by the day. The wastage is increasing by the day. None of them are taking any steps to curb the wastage and the expenditure. The public has been paying taxes from the day one. The taxes have been increased by this government.
Qamar Nizamdeen, the Sydney University student who faced terrorism charges over an alleged plot to kill several Australian government members, was granted bail after the sole piece of evidence against him was found to be inconclusive.
Qamar Nizamdeen was arrested in August after a colleague found a notebook allegedly containing details of plans to kill Turnbull and attack iconic landmarks such as the Opera House. Police accused him of planning a lone wolf attack. But today, a court heard the sole piece of evidence against Nizamdeen, a notebook in which police allege he had laid out his plot, was not his handwriting. The prosecution had become aware that an expert handwriting examiner found an inconclusive result on the relevant entries contained in the notebook. Without a conclusive expert opinion suggesting the defendant was the relevant author, evidence for the charge has been significantly weakened. The ABC reported that the court heard other material belonging to Nizamdeen, including his computer and mobile phone, did not reveal any extremist ideology. After the hearing, Nizamdeen's lawyer said his client had been, quote, granted bail because the case against was extremely weak, almost non-existent, unquote. Nizamdeen has spent the last 4 weeks in jail while his family and supporters have maintained he is innocent. Last week, hundreds of people gathered in Sri Lanka to protest his treatment in prison. Nizamdeen's lawyer said police had conducted 8 hours of interviews with the student, which also did not uncover anything against the suspect. Nizamdeen has been in Australia on a student visa completing his postgraduate studies. He has no criminal history and had appeared in online promotional material for the University of South Wales, where he worked. The matter will return to court in October.
DIG Nalaka de Silva, who was in charge of the Terrorist Investigation Division, arrived at the Government Analyst Department this morning to record a voice sample.
The Government Analyst Department said that the DIG's voice sample was recorded within half an hour. Court yesterday ordered for the voice sample of DIG Nalaka de Silva to be recorded by the government analyst for the investigations being conducted into the alleged assassination attempt on President Maithripala Sirisena and former Defence Secretary Gotabaya Rajapaksa. We have seen many conspiracies throughout the history. We witnessed the conspiracy that assassinated late Bandaranaike in 1959. We saw how conspiracies were implemented to topple Madam Sirimavo's 3-month government. We witnessed the assassination of Sajit Premadasa as a result of a conspiracy in 1993. There is a problem about national security. The Parliament will convene on the 21st for the last time. It will convene again only on the 9th of October. When there is a situation like this, while the head of state is overseas, we suggest the Speaker immediately convene Parliament. Issuing a communique, the Speaker's office said that Speaker Karu Jayasuriya has referred a request made by the joint opposition to summon Parliament to Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe. The communique shows that the Prime Minister has the power to make a request to summon the House. I responsibly state that the CID is conducting the investigations with regard to DIG Nalaka de Silva expeditiously. Certain joint opposition representatives told media that DIG Nalaka de Silva is not questioned yet. We don't decide that. It is the CID that decides it. There were certain media organizations that spoke about an Indian national. Some newspapers carried headlines about the conspiracy, but 2 days later the CID got some information about the Indian national. In his statement, he clearly says that he wasn't involved in the conspiracy and that he met Nalaka Kumara only after he heard about it. We don't know who Namal Kumara is yet. We are yet to find information about him. I'm not going to jump into any conclusions, and the minister also holds the same stance. Meanwhile, Minister Ranjit Madhum Bandara commented on the statement made regarding the minister in charge of Sri Lanka Police. Ranjit Madhum Bandara does not control the police. This is controlled by Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe through Minister Sagala Ratnayaka. This is a complete lie. It's something that he has created. There is nothing like that. If Sagala Ratnayaka wants anything done through the police, he calls me.
Former Secretary of Defence Gotabaya Rajapaksa took part in religious activities at the Bhattakattara Sri Sumanarama Ancient Temple in Piliyandala. Following the event, he responded to questions posed by the media.
වර්තමානයේ වන විට ඒකාබද්ධ විපක්ෂ ප්‍රමුඛ කණ්ඩායම ඔබතුමාව දේශපාලනයේ රැගෙනීමේ ප්‍රමුඛ කාර්යයක් සිදු කරනවා. ඔබතුමාගේ සූදානම කොයි වගේද? සූදානම්ද පොර පිටියට එන්න? සහෝදරයෙක් කියලා ජනාධිපතිවරයා ඉන්දියාවට ගෙනවා අපිට කියන්නේ නැහැ. ඉන්දියාවට ගිහිල්ලා කියනවා. ඒක ඇත්තක්ද? ඇත්තක්ද? ඇත්තක් නේද? ඒක ඉතින් මහින්ද ජනාධිපති ජනතාව ඉල්ලන්නේ බොහෝ දුරට ඒකාබද්ධ කට්ටිය කන්ෆර්ම් කරලා
Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe spoke on media freedom yesterday.
Media freedom will exist only if there is democracy in the country. If democracy is established, media freedom will also be established. As a government, we are dedicated to protect these rights. We need to continue on this path. Who speaks about Lasantha Wickrematunge? Who speaks about Ekneligoda? I would like to ask, looking at the past 2 years, how many newspapers wrote on this? I'd like to ask you to take that as a marker and work accordingly. I would like to say that media freedom was won through the struggle of the people. It can only be lost by the media. Do the Prime Minister's statements speak of the reality? Once elected, the Prime Minister secretly included articles to suppress the media into the 19th Amendment to the Constitution. Those articles, which could be used to penalize journalists, were not passed because we sought relief from the court. Thereafter, he brought in an NGO representative named Toby Mendel and drafted a law to regulate the media together with Ranga Kalansurya. There is serious discussion on this document that includes articles that could imprison journalists. Who made promises to investigate the killings of journalists and cases of intimidations and is purposely delaying those investigations?
Yesterday, the Prime Minister said the law has been enforced to the fullest extent on the 16-year-old child. We hope the Prime Minister would show the same measures being taken on the incident where a person was detained in a torture room and disappeared forever. I know this government would never bring the Rajapaksas, who are the criminals behind Prageet's disappearance, before the law.
As soon as he saw the inappropriate pictures of the children, he took action in 24 hours. The government must not raise questions from us for the questions posed by the spouses of Sandhya Eknaligoda and Lasantha Wickrematunge. On the 8th of January, the People's Court ruled it was done by the Rajapaksas. Gotabaya Rajapaksa faces the main allegations of assassinating Lasantha Wickrematunge. Though the government remains silent, the people are aware of this. They know who is responsible for the abduction of Keith Noya. What is the credibility of the government? This is shameful. Ledger. When the leadership was challenged, some laid tar on the road opposite Sirikota. Can one have any expectation that they would be brought before the law? The Prime Minister speaks of the issue on media freedom. And is it not because of the continuous revelation on fraud and corruption? The country is experiencing the after effects of the central bank bond scam, which took place days after appointing his friend Arjun Mahendran to the post of governor. An associate was appointed to Sri Lankan Airlines and it was forced into debt, which also imbalanced the entire banking system in the country. Under the guise of large development projects, some build close relationships with those from the former regime, and who is entertaining them now? Does the Prime Minister only recall media freedom when the media exposes such matters?
The crows are not in their nest anymore. They are speaking before the media. Why? Because some of them want to come back to the throne. Recently, former Defence Secretary Gotabaya was seen wearing a green cloth over his shoulder at a Muslim event. They have no shame. They wear the shawl for something else. These crows keep screaming. They want to send the government out, or they will send them out. There are those who want to come back to power. These are all empty bags carried by both sides.
Qamar Nizamdeen, who was released on bail in Australia today, spoke exclusively to Newsfirst a short while ago, and this is what he had to say.
Hi everybody, I'm Qamar Nizamdeen, as you are well aware, and I've been granted bail and I'm a free man now. Just like to give a shout out of thanks to everyone who was supportive and stood by me and my parents. Big thank you to the Sri Lankan High Commission, Mr. Skandakumar, Mr. Lal Wickrematunge and Ms. Premadasa from the Sri Lankan Consul General in Australia. And thank you very much to the Sri Lankan public, the Sri Lankan media such as Sirasa for providing factual news about my situation. Thank you very much to all my supporters back home in Colombo and here in Sydney as well. Thank you for all the vigils, the social media posts and continuing to fight the good fight in my name. Thank you so much and God bless you all.
The 129th Udagamana village was declared open in Katupiligama, Monaragala today. The event was attended by Deputy Leader of the United National Party, Minister Sajit Premadasa.
The village named Nalasirigama consists of 32 houses. Land deeds and goods were also distributed This deal is an important deal, the deal struck at elections, the deal struck between the people and the rulers. But in most of these deals, the people are deceived. They try to show off a great personality, but on the inside, they are empty. What can we do? It's not the rupee that we must stop depreciating, it's the people of the country that we must save from depreciation. This Udagamana program is a project to stop the people from depreciating. What is being done through all of these programs? Human resources are strengthened. Can anyone point a finger and say that money was stolen from Sajit Premadasa's ministry? The entire bulk of funds is being distributed among the general public. All the benefits are for the grassroots. I must state that we cannot work properly today because of so-called pundit officers. Remember, to find out what the price of a perch of land here is, 500,000 rupees is given as a loan for the construction of these houses. When you add the value of the land, this is a great gift for your children and your third generation. All of this is possible thanks to Sajit Premadasa. Engaging in politics is not stopping someone from doing something good.
The Sri Lanka Medical Council has commenced the registration of Saitam medical graduates. A senior official at the SLMC said the registration is taking place as per a ruling delivered by the Supreme Court recently.
81 Saitam graduates have already completed their degree. The Sri Lanka Medical Council said though they have begun accepting applications for the registration, they are yet to receive a single application from a Saitam graduate. At the same time, the process of transferring students of Saitam to the medical faculty of Kotalavala Defence University has begun as per the law passed by the government. Major General Indunil Ranasinghe, Deputy Vice Chancellor of KDU, said 5 batches have already been enrolled. He said the remaining batches will be enrolled once they complete the documentations required by KDU. We congratulate you for this win because you struggled for your right to education. However, there is a serious matter you must bear in mind. A doctor is always a doctor. The people of this country expect a service from you, and you must deliver. You must uphold the trust of the people.
V-Force, a program organized by Newsfirst to empower the youth of Sri Lanka, will commence its 3rd phase tomorrow from the Warakatota Bridge in Ratnapura.
With the objective of building the nation with empowered youth, V-Force will commence its operations with the planting of 400 tree saplings on the riverbanks of the Kaluganga. The long-term objective of V-Force is to minimize riverbank erosion through the planting of trees and mitigate the risk of floods in these areas. Incidentally, tomorrow's initiative is supported by the Ratnapura Divisional Secretariat and the Asia-Pacific Alliance for Disaster Management.
Planting of trees on either sides of the banks of the Kalu River is a good thing. This project is a very good initiative. These saplings that are ideal to be planted along the banks of the Kalu River will be planted covering 7 divisional secretariats tomorrow. We are in a time where planting trees is of paramount importance. The people must feel the importance of planting a tree. It is important to direct government officials and the general public for these kinds of initiatives.
The first phase of the GUM at the V-Force commenced in Sigiriya, while the second phase took place at the Muhandiram Pitiya Lagoon in Negombo, amidst a large gathering including many university students. Present at these events were many representatives from various fields whose collective objective was to fulfill their responsibilities towards their motherland.
A Liberian court has issued arrest warrants for more than 30 former central bank officials in connection with the $104 million that went missing on the way to the bank. International media reports claim a tsunami took place after Indonesia was struck by a strong magnitude of a 7.7 earthquake. The finals of the Asia Cup is currently underway between India and Bangladesh. Batting first, Bangladesh were bundled out for 222 runs. India needed 223 runs to win the game. And that's the wrap for Primetime News. It was a pleasure having you with us. For the News First team, I'm Rahna Farooq. Thank you for watching. Have a pleasant night.